This video will explain the alarms and shutdowns that come as standard safety features on all high-fab pressure boosters. We'll also look at how you can adjust some of the various settings that are available for these different alarms. When you first walk up to one of our pressure boosters and you look at the touchscreen, you may see a main menu that looks like this, or perhaps you'll see a status menu that looks something like this, or maybe even a graph of the supply header pressure. If you see this whenever you walk up to the unit, you can simply tap anywhere on the screen and it will bring you back to the system status menu. From there, or from any other sub-menu, you can hit this escape button in the upper right corner and it'll bring you back to the main menu. First, we'll look at the different alarms and shutdowns and how you can configure those at startup. From the main menu, simply tap the word configuration. Once you get into the system configuration submenu, you can navigate using the M+ or M- buttons over here, which mean menu plus or menu minus. So you'll see that there's an alarms/shutdown menu item here. Tap that and that will bring you into this submenu that has all the alarms and shutdowns available on the booster. So we'll walk through each one. I'll explain what they are and what kind of adjustments you can make. The first one in question here is HTSD, which stands for high temperature shutdown. Basically what this alarm is for is there's a high temperature shutdown set point. So on the pressure booster, there are temperature sensors that are measuring temperature on the discharge side of the pumps. If the discharge temperature exceeds the high temperature shutdown set point for a shutdown delay time, which is adjustable, then the unit will go into alarm and actually go into shutdown. So if you want to adjust that set point, you just simply tap here. And since this is the first thing that we're adjusting, it's going to ask for a username and a password. So whenever you're adjusting any parameter that this is requested for, you can simply use the username of the number 1, and the password is also the number 1. Once you've entered those, you hit this unlock button right here, and you'll notice in the center of the screen that it brought up current user 1, which indicates that user 1 is logged in and that worked correctly. So this back arrow here will bring you back to that menu that we were in. So you'll have to tap on that set point one more time. So in this case, we'll say we'd like to set our high temperature shutdown to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. You hit enter. You adjusted the high temperature shutdown to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The reset delta there is basically the temperature at which the unit will have to drop in order for it to automatically start running again when it's in a shutdown due to high temperature condition. So you'll see with a reset delta of 20 degrees Fahrenheit, your reset temperature is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll also notice that there's question marks after some of the items in the menu here. Any item that has a question mark after it is something that you can adjust in the field, whereas the reset temperature is dependent upon the set point and the reset delta that you enter. The second alarm is LSSD, or low suction shutdown set point. This one is similar in that it's an alarm that automatically will reset once a suitable condition has been met. So the low suction shutdown monitors the suction pressure on the suction side of the pumps for the booster. The way it's set now, the unit would shut down if the suction pressure drops below 10 psi for 15 seconds. You also have an option to adjust the reset deadband there, which is 5 psi. So whenever the unit has a suction pressure that increases and exceeds that reset pressure of 15 psi, it'll automatically come back on. No one has to intervene, no one has to go out to the unit and manually reset it at the touchscreen. But this next alarm, which is high suction shutdown, is a little bit different. So you'll notice that there's only 2 items here available. On this one, it's also measuring the suction pressure, but it's looking for a high suction pressure. So you can adjust the set point of that. In this case, you can see it's set to 100 psi, and you can also adjust the shutdown delay. So say if it's at 100 psi on the suction side of the booster for just 30 seconds, the unit will shut down. You'll see that there's no reset deadband or anything like that. So if the unit goes into high suction shutdown, then the user will have to go out and manually reset that alarm in order to get the booster to start running again. You can disable many of these alarms by just simply changing the set point to 0. So similar to that one, we have a high pressure shutdown, but instead of looking at suction pressure, this is actually looking at a high discharge pressure. You can only adjust these 2 parameters, and this is one that requires a manual reset. So you're going to want to make sure your high pressure shutdown set point is above your usual operating pressure for the booster, but you also want to make sure it's not higher than a pressure that's suitable for that system, so that we can ensure safe operation of the booster for the components as well as the operators. The second to last here is low system pressure shutdown set point. So on this one, we're looking at the system pressure on the discharge side of the booster. And if for some reason the discharge pressure of the booster drops below 5 psi for 30 seconds, or any adjustable delay that you set that to, the unit's going to go into alarm. But for this alarm, we have the option to either lock the system out or shut it down, or we can just have an alarm pop up that lets us know that it's in low system pressure condition. So the system lockout's disabled now. The unit would not shut down when it went into this alarm condition. If you would like the unit to shut down in that case, you can enable it right here. So just ensure that that's set to whichever way you would like to have it once the unit is installed. And the final alarm and shutdown option we have here is there is a VFD operation alarm delay and also a pump alarm delay. So what this means is that first 30-second alarm delay for the VFD that you see is if the controller sends a signal to the VFD to shut off and the VFD does not turn off for 30 seconds, you're going to get an alarm that says VFD in manual. Conversely, the pump alarm delay, in this case of 5 seconds, or say an adjustable 10 seconds, will be something that's active if the controller sends a signal to the VFD to run, and after 10 seconds, the run status from the VFD does not indicate that it is running, you're going to get a pump alarm. You can also look at an alarm history for all of these different alarms, and you simply escape back to the main menu, and instead of going to configurations, you'll tap the alarms submenu right here. So you can look at an alarm summary of current alarms if you had some. You can also look at an alarm history, which you'll see in this case, there were some pump 1 temp sensor alarms. They're all green because they're not active. So if they were active alarms, they would be red still. In this case, those have all been remedied. They're no longer in an alarm condition, so they're green. And that's kind of an overview of the alarms and shutdowns that are available on high fab pressure boosters.